All right, and we are live. Okay. So currently for me, a lot later than we were planning to get started for sure. It is 9:22 a.m. for me over in Phoenix, Arizona. And for good old Josh Davies here, formerly of Monasteries, now of Malice, with their new single, I think it's like Unearthed, or it's very similar. I know I'm close.
Underneath.
Underneath, okay. Okay, so I was kind of close, but not really. He has decided to unleash a new project upon the underground counterculture music world. And more specifically, Malice is now immediately, just right off the bat, distributing their music through Blood Blast Distribution, which is really a branch off of Nuclear Blast Records. It's cool to see a whole bunch of homies be jumping on that process recently, including Reminiscence, Snake Father, so many bands who are just getting started up, trying to make a name for themselves, and really are on the tier that Crown Magnetar and hell followed with. That's so difficult to say. And hell followed with. um, it basically they're in the same shoes as those bands were about 3 years ago, right? They're just on the cusp of really making a name for themselves, possibly jumping on consistent tours, whether locally scheduled or even just cross country tours, right? They're definitely they all have the right idea. And these days, no dirt spat, no dirt thrown on record labels and stuff. But sometimes it's simply less complicated to have a secondary option. For example, Rise Records, they have Pale Chord Music, and that's kind of the step down. That's just for distribution. Same thing here, right? Nuclear Blast Records, legendary for hosting bands such as Fit for an Autopsy, Aborted, and recently Brand of Sacrifice. But like ultimately, sometimes when it's copyright claim on your own music that you're making in studio, right? I'm sure that some projects find it a little less complicated to simply have the record label kind of technically help them distribute their music and nothing else. Like, other than that, we want to do our own thing. We want to handle everything by ourselves. Maybe it'll be less costly that way as well. But of course, that's just kind of a freaking music industry tangent right off the bat. Again, we are welcoming back Josh Davies. We did a podcast session quite some time ago, and I think we went pretty deep into your history, into your story, into your legacy. And then not only did I somehow fucking lose the podcast file, the podcast WAV, which I'm like, dude, what? But also then soon after, which I think is kind of a testament as to why I ended up losing that session. Well, his other project, Monasteries, ended up breaking up after, I think, what was at least close to 5 years or so, if not plenty longer than that. I'm sure you'll fill us in on the details of that. We are welcoming him back to kind of be there at the very freaking beginning of his new endeavors, that being Malice. I have yet to listen to the track, but I did listen to like a tiny preview of it before we did have Josh jump on into session today, and it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good, and I like kind of the gross yellow background, the visuals, the textures that were occurring. Definitely gives me the impression of like looking through a dirty window in an abandoned asylum or something. So that's always good. And simply said, since then, me and him were talking about it a lot before we even started session. But he's like, "Oh, dude, you cut your hair?" I'm like, "Yep, a lot has changed." Simply said, Josh has grown out his hair. He's had to make multiple big decisions and choices regarding something he was devoting to for a very long time. So we'll definitely be looking to talk about that today. But of course, to get things started off, how are you doing today?
I am well. It's an exciting time because Malice is now officially out to the world, and it was kind of like, for me personally, like a secret. I didn't really like speak about it unless it was like close friends, and I never really like told anyone. People just asked me, be like, "All right, it's new music," and I'd be like, "Yeah, there's definitely like new music on the way," but not specifying what music or the material is or what the plan is, because it was just like, even before my departure in Monasteries, Malice has been in the works 2 months prior to
Yeah.
that. So it's been it's I think like off the top of my head, it's probably like 8 or 9 months. So it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I even remember you briefly talking about Malice when we were doing our session for you speaking on behalf of your story, monasteries, all that. I was like, oh, okay, so you got another band that starts with them. That's pretty cool. Like let's see what ends up transpiring from that. And I think I even remember asking about like what we should expect from Malice in the future alongside monasteries, because that's a lot of shit to work on. And you're like, well, I mean, Malice is, kind of the thing on the side. I'm not sure what I'm doing with it yet, but we'll see what happens as time continues. And well, now it's the main effort. Now it's the main goal. It's in the
Yeah.
forefront, which is ironic, really, how that works. But basically, ladies and gentlemen, everything possibly in between over on the Sean Cross channel in the Cross Core. The 71 who are now subscribed to the Anatomy Podcasts YouTube channel. Thank you very much for subscribing over there. And thank you to the 329 who are following us over on our Facebook page. Me being a one-man army, me being a one-man management team, I do apologize for any noticeable inconsistencies with the Facebook page or the YouTube channel, maybe even the Instagram, because we got that set up recently, or at least that was my goal, as the Anatomy Podcast is no longer just me. Now, recently, of course, our intention was to schedule for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of every week throughout the entire year, amounting to about 144 sessions, whether an hour or 4.5 hours, like we did recently with desoectomy. That was insane. Let's just say I was ready to use the restroom. I was like, yo, I want to go get dinner at some point. Because we were just talking to what was 4 out of 5 members of a California or IE area, California slam down band. So slam and beat down band. Also, of course, recommended to us by the Envirulence, Havasu City local, just badasses, one of the goofiest bands in the planet, but also one of the funnest. And I think that's why they're going to be making a name for themselves in slam. Well, simply said, I did not expect for the Anatomy Podcast to accumulate into 4.5 hours. Now, of course, after editing, more or less it became 4 hours and 2 minutes, but good God, when you keep in consideration just doing an EP listening session in stream, and then on top of that, just talking to 3 slam bands, 1 brand new kid to the scene who happens to be a bassist and who also happens to look like a YouTuber you followed. Well, that and 2 different hosts in the first place, well, that ends up conjuring plenty of conversation. So shout out to the boys in Deso. Shout out to the boys, that being Brandon O'Neill and Isaac Clarkson from Vile. We're back. Okay, cool. um, it was awesome to see Vile Revelation consisting of Isaac Clarkson and Brandon O'Neill. Of course, the other members we just didn't have in session, so that doesn't solely consist of Brandon and Isaac. We listened to their new album, their new EP, Cast from Eden, in session. A good combination of alien deathcore and blackened deathcore as they attempt to kind of combine them and create kind of a conspiracy deathcore theme, which I'm looking forward to in the future. As was suggested in session, ideas like a priest, but then you like he pulls away his face and he's just a reptilian underneath or some shit. The future is looking very prosperous for bands like Invirulent, Vile Revelation, and Desoectomy. So I look forward to seeing what ends up occurring and the future that they carve out as time continues. But that's really just reviewing upon the last 3 sessions. And of course, shout out to Joseph Coleman of Surefire as well, as that was another session we cooked up recently. That was really fun. Basically 2.5 hours with one dude talking about Pokemon and really, really nerdy shit. And going, proceeding from that point, really, I'm definitely trying to make sure that this show ends up being a lot more organic, as far as conversation, right? It's not exactly the most entertaining when you have 67 to 68, 71 episodes worth of where did you grow up? Like, where did you grow up? Like, what's your stomping grounds? Or at least the intention was to kind of bring more nostalgia to the forefront of the conversation. So maybe we'll be doing that today. Maybe take two of our debut session with Josh Davies will be a little bit more entertaining than last time. That's one thing that people that I could hope, really. But what's most important is kind of just introducing the formula, as basically we have practiced this before, we've done this before, but there are new elements to the conversations that we attempt to create for this show. This is Nat Geo for Black and Deathcore, Slam, Deathcore, all of the major subgenres in counterculture music. This is the Nat Geo. I am David Attenborough with Corpse Paint sometimes. So getting started off, the people want a more deeper understanding of the person they're talking to or the person that I'm talking to. So if you could do me a favor, Josh, if you can basically let the people know what you do, kind of provide an elementary level introduction, pretend you're standing before the class for the first time in like grade 5, 6, 7, whatever, and just kind of provide us a brief glimpse into what makes you, and then we will proceed from that point.
Well, obviously, my full name is Joshua Mark Davis. I only get called Joshua when I'm in trouble, but yeah, Josh Davis. I sang in the band Monasteries that I left 4 months ago, and prior to that, I used to sing in a band called Sentence, and my first ever band was called Abandonment, and that was like a hardcore band, metalcore thing, back in maybe like 2017. So it was like a very, very, very long time ago. So yeah, that's a bit about me, my music. I own a Dachshund hound now. She's 8 months. She's awesome. But yeah, and I've been screaming for like 8 years now. Still figuring it out. Still trying to better myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And of course, one detail that I always have to summon, right, regarding our connection, how we kind of know each other, even if in the moment we didn't realize who each other were. Speaking for what was the Ingesting America 2023 tour, when they came through town, my fucking caveman brain did not realize that this dude was the merch guy for Ingested and has been the merch guy for Ingested for quite a long time. So my ass saw this dude in person. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for like 2XL or whatever. And it just never clicked in my brain that I was talking with Josh Davis. It was so funny, like doing the first session and kind of talking about that. But like, obviously we got to talk about your connection with Ingested. We got to talk about everything that kind of makes you as a music personality, a music enthusiast, someone who is as into death metal, slam, metalcore, deathcore as you are. And then, of course, you know, it's always interesting for us freaking Yankees, us Americans over here, to learn more about folks from that side of the pond and kind of dig a little bit more into what makes UK slam, like UK counterculture, different from that of what we have over here. Maybe some of the scenes that you're involved in that none of us would think you are. Maybe some things you love about the UK, all that type of fun stuff. And of course, again, good old freaking Yankee brain scratching conversation. So thank you for providing what was more or less a preview into your legacy, all the projects you've been in before. Now what I want you to do essentially is go as far back as possible, right? As far back relevant as you can remember. Maybe even try to scratch at various crevices in your psychscape for nostalgia bait, right? Things that you really, really enjoyed earlier in life, and maybe obstacles, maybe lessons you learned, right? Tell us about everything that you can possibly remember. You can take as much time as you need to. And really, if we end up going into tangents, if we end up talking about more fun stuff, and if you want to talk about more fun stuff along the way, go right ahead. It kind of, I hope, keeps the listeners engaged. But take it away, sir. This is Josh Davis of Now Malice.
Well, well, yeah, I started doing vocals when I was like 15, 16. I think I did it when like I just left secondary school. Secondary school wasn't like the best for me. It was like just super depressed, super anxious, barely had any friends, always just kind of like get bullied. So then kind of just use that aggression and put it towards an outlet, which ended up singing it in my room with like my old high school friend. And then pretty much just like he kind of like dipped out and focused on like real life stuff, like wanting to go to uni, get a degree in law, which he did. Shout out to him. And then I just continued following what I enjoyed. I didn't know what would be the outcome. I didn't really know anything at all. I just wanted to just being a band and just the goal was just to tour, just to play, just to make an impact. And if I somewhat have done that, then I have achieved it, which is amazing. And
Yeah.
my younger self would never have like thought that, but like, yeah. And then after secondary school, I was like screaming in my room for like maybe a year or two. Didn't have Spotify Premium or
Yeah.
Spotify at all. Just did it all off like YouTube and
YouTube
singing.
MP3.
Yeah, just kind of like singing off like music videos, not even like MP3s. It's just like the videos itself. And then
Oh, right.
yeah. So like no lyrics, just kind of like doing it. With whether I got the lyrics right or not, it didn't matter. I was just wanted to make cool noises, and then somewhat down the line, when I was like 17, I started my first band, Abandonment. I was in like bands before, but it was like bands that never like did anything. It was just like,
They were more like projects as opposed to bands.
yeah, it's just stuff you kind of like join group chats or get invited to group chats, and then you practice in like community centers. So like I was in like a community center metalcore band that didn't have any original songs, had nothing, covered like Parkway Drive, The Amity Affliction, and got kicked out of that because I didn't want heavy vocals. And then Snowball started. There's like it's like a website that in the UK. I don't know if it's like in the US, but it's called like joinmyband.com.
No, we don't have that.
Yeah, we had that. I don't know if it's still up, but if it's still up, then that's awesome. But like,
That's great.
it's such a gateway. It's so cool because then like I did that, and then people would put out like applications that they just
That's
wanted to
sick.
join the band. So it's like, and then you just kind of like message them on there and be like, "Hey, do you want to come start this?" And then I did that, and then when that happened, I started going to like shows, like local hardcore shows, seeing bands like Split Knuckle, who were still going, Cold Hard Truth, Stranded, RIP, and then just kind of like being around that territory, but also like prior to that, like I was going to like big metal shows to like Slipknot, Korn.
Yeah.
My first ever show was it I say starts from like top to bottom to top. It was like opener was Betraying the Martyrs when Aaron Matt was still in or just joined, and then it goes Motionless in White.
Okay.
It was Motionless in White before the infamous stage. I think they were still on Creatures, and then it was like While She Sleeps, and then it was Asking Alexandria. I was like a big metalcore kid when I was a kid, and I still am at heart. I love it. I love it, dude. It's so
I am
sick.
too.
Exactly. Like there's a band called Boundaries who are just kind of bringing that feel back for me, and it's just
Yes.
unreal.
Yes. We're trying to get them on the show for sure. Like I love
Hopefully, you
Boundaries so
can.
much.
Like
I do.
they're
That's
so
what I'm
good.
saying, bro.
I've followed them since they dropped Carve, and I've just haven't gone back since. So pretty
Mm.
much, yeah, like after that, and then while I was in abandonment, like probably like on the second year of it being a band, um, just saw Monasteries lost a vocalist, didn't try out, doubted myself. They got a guy in for a split second, and then the guy left, joined another band, and then they were still left without a vocalist. I kind of knew the guitarist Aaron, and the old guitarist I met just kind of previous on like on night outs, and then after that, was just talking. He was like, "Oh, you should try it out." They needed a guy still. I sent it through. I can't remember how I did it. I think I did like one of the songs. I think it might have been like Flatline in my room, recorded off my old iPhone phone, put it in a Dropbox folder and sent it to him. So like no actual audio. Because I never had this sure since I've been able to focus right. Never had a laptop or a computer. So kind of like, yeah, pretty much just that happened.
You did
The,
what you could with the resources you
yeah,
had.
exactly. And then they liked it, told me to do a different song, and then pretty much went down to Manchester, showed up in Manchester, did a practice rehearsal. Neither done didn't do like well, yeah, didn't do a practice. Didn't even get told I was in the band or like anything. So yeah, I found out through like other friends, like they wanted me in, and then obviously the rest was history. Did monasteries for 5+ years, and now
Five
I'm
plus, okay.
here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
no,
did monasteries for 5 years.
it's that's crazy, man. Because like it kind of reviewing back on that, I've always and this is something that me and my co-host were talking about in our 2024 co-pilot pilot, as I called it, that we released earlier this year. Really, really fun session where we talked about like wanting to not only be there at the beginning, but sometimes being there at the end for certain bands and projects. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a North Carolina like OG classic like MySpace era deathcore band called the Stygian Complex, but that would definitely serve. They're really, really good. Unfortunately, they disbanded recently after being active and trying to do something since about 2018. So like they had been going for a really, really long time. It's about the same time, same chunk of time that Monasteries was trying to do their thing and just like create something fresh, create something heavy, but something distinguishable, that type of stuff. The Stygian Complex had been a thing since 2018, but apparently some of the members were losing interest over time, and they just released a new album this year called Suffer With Me, artwork done by the incredible, infamous, or famous deathcore album cover artist, that being Caesar Aldrian, same guy behind Shrine of Malice Sheol, same guy behind Infinite Annihilators, The Egg, right? Really, really iconic artists that did their album. It was super cool to see them release a full length, and then well, they decided to disband. So me and him were talking about it, and he's from the MySpace era for sure. He's like 33, so he's got like a he's got, at least got a decade on me by now. Really cool dude. But we were just talking about like all these MySpace era deathcore bands and all these projects, like basically telling as much of their story as possible that no one really like would, a lot of people would care to hear, but like then there are some other people, maybe like Nick Nocturnal, Galactic Criminal, Tank the Tech, and this is not me, throwing shade at any other metal reacting content creators. It's not the intention, but more or less it's like all of the bands that maybe they don't have the time to talk to, interview with, talk with for 4.5 hours at the most. We want to make sure to give all of those personalities some spotlight early on and kind of shadow them and see how the future unfolds. And well, if people find the conversations relevant, well, that's one goal of the Anatomy podcast. But it's just crazy to think that Monasteries and the Stygian Complex will end up being two of the first bands that we've kind of provided conversation for provided spotlight for. Simply said, because I'm not aware of any other interviews or podcasts that any of the members of Monasteries, including formerly of Monasteries, including yourself, have done other aside from the Anatomy podcast. But it's always intriguing to me to provide them that attention where they didn't think that maybe it would be there before, and just sit down, talk like human beings, not always talk about tour, new album, new music, material, content. We need the content. We need the moolah. It's like, no, just have a fucking conversation with these people. And then of course, just like you've already done, dig a little bit into their history and kind of piece everything together for their audience, for their listeners. Sorry, I'm going on a self-fulfilling tangent.
You're
But
good.
for sure, it's like you've been a part of a great many projects. You did your homework just like a lot of us did. You had band projects that you were trying to participate in, you were trying to push forward with. But when you are primarily a vocalist and, you know, maybe you're intimidated by investing yourself into being an instrumentalist, into being a guitarist, a bassist, even a drummer, it's like, well, how many of these other people are just trying to say they're in a band to say they're in a band and not really do anything with it? Because I can definitely provide a testament and say that most of my high school, or so you said secondary school, that would be what grade? Like what grade number to what grade number?
We don't really have like grade numbers. It's just like year
Oh,
7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year
oh,
11.
okay. So year 7 to I think 9 for you. That would be middle school for us. That would be junior high school, and then high school would be that would be 9th to 12th grade. So that would be year 9 to year 12. So year 9 to year 12 for me, it was like I was always trying to find people on campus who wanted to do something serious. But at the end of the day, it was really just the status. They wanted that label, right? They wanted to be like, I'm in a band. I'm like, well, you don't fucking write anything. So why are you saying you're in a band? Like, you're not even writing any lyrics. I'm writing all the lyrics. I'm designing all the logos. I'm trying to roadmap out releases and shit. And these guys are like, we go over to their house and they're like barely just like bing, you know, making the guitar strings like snap or some shit because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So it's funny to look back on that easily. It's so entertaining to look back on that and to kind of review and recollect upon projects maybe that you could have been in if like things were working out better with the other members, and if things were like taken a little bit more seriously, perhaps. It's funny to look back on that stuff. But ultimately, when you are one of the people who are the most engaged, right, at the end of the day, that ends up being your homework. It's like, okay, this is how it feels to try to manage like 5 different people, or this is how it feels to try to push 5 different people into actually being musicians. But yet again, I'm in year 9 to 12 of school. So everybody's still kind of kids. They're just older kids, right? They're right on the cusp of being young adults. So they don't really understand, but they do, but they don't. And it just kind of bounces back and forth, causing friction, causing hesitation, and therefore you call it a project. You call it a band project as opposed to actually being a band. It's just funny to look back on that for sure. Like, of course, not to throw shade on any of the other musicians or any of the other personalities, maybe even music enthusiasts. We'll give them that credit at least, that you worked with before. Like, can you kind of like recall and compare or even confirm similar experiences with other musicians before? Like, you know, they just wanted to be in a band to say that they were in a band, but nothing else.
Yeah, like when I was like my first track roots of like starting being in bands and like pursuing it, there was definitely like individuals who weren't there for like the right reason. And it's even like when Malice started, I wanted people for the right reason. I didn't want just clout chasers or people just wanted the 5 second of fame. I just kind of wanted people that were in it for the art and in it for like itself, and just to kind of like push push it all and bring back what's kind of like gone. And then but yeah, and I feel like with Malice I have found like the right people and the people that are willing to just like go balls to the wall and just fucking commit and do it. So
Good.
yeah, basically right now.
Yeah, and that's solid, man. And that's like always the most gratifying feeling, is not only when you find people who are authentically motivated, they are consistent in wanting to create something, get singles out, get EPs out. Look into signing to a secondhand music distributor as opposed to paying for everything on your own terms. That way you get a little bit more spotlight, but you're not on a record label contract, as we mentioned before with Blood Blast Distribution. I can't even imagine the feeling. Like I feel like I'm on the cusp of that, really, because right now for my own project, I'm in the auditioning process for at least 2 people. I'm trying to acquire a drummer, but she also doesn't really have that much experience in drumming for anything other than like kind of more casual AC/DC era rock. She wants to be a drummer really bad, but she also recently got a job at a hospital. She just got into her first house with her partner, and it's almost like impossible to get a hold of her. And I want her to be the drummer so bad, but also she seems to be leading a very, very busy life. And of course, drummer, right? That is absolutely the hardest fucking thing ever to ever find for any genre. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
they're like
And
gold dust. Like even here in the UK, it's like we had a guy before and he didn't quite make the cut, but our drummer Jack, he just like it was so annoying because he's like who he was like next door to like Monastery's old like practice space,
oh
and he
shit.
said like he would hear me like practice on my own, and then yeah, we ended up like being him getting referred to us, and I messaged him was like, hey, like I'm starting this, got a few guys in this band project, want to see what we can do, and he was like, well, I'm looking for the exact same thing. I was like, well, you should just come pretty much join us, and the rest is history. And he's fantastic, and it's like he has style. He looks good when he drums, and I like that. He's not stiff. He's got the long hair. He's very loose, and he's
Good.
a hard hitting drummer. Like he hits hard, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
And I mean, that's really the cherry on top. Is not only when you finally, like, I don't know how far in the process you ended up finding Jack, but like finding a drummer, but also finding a drummer who's not stiff, who has style, who seems to be really, really passionate, and you find him at just the right time. Like, what are the odds, right? It's insane.
It kind of like every member just kind of like fell into place.
And that's
And I've
cool.
Yeah, it is. I've not really had anything like that. I've always had the struggle of finding people to kind of replace other people, or just kind of being like, well, there's no point. But like, yeah, everyone kind of like just fell into place, and it's pretty cool.
Good shit, dude. And we'll definitely be talking about that a little bit more as if if anything, this podcast will be to reflect upon what was with Monasteries, what you guys accomplished, and then of course looking forward to the future, right? We're wrapping things up for Monasteries. We're now looking forward with Malice, right? So it's going to be very important to me to kind of pinpoint early on in the process, like basically what was the recruitment process on your end, because I know you were the guy looking for all these guys. You were the one recruiting, and per se at this point in time, I don't exactly know if any of the other monasteries members made it over to Malice. Like, did anybody come over with you? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So like the origin, the lore, the starting point, the pinnacle point was Aaron Wright, formerly guitarist of Monasteries, wrote Ominous, wrote Silence, and did his fair share on Pulmonary Failure and Amygdala Chorus. Pretty much like we were writing the next Monasteries release, and there was just like no vibe. There was just no like there was nothing in the air, and we both just seemed a bit like bummed out. And then I turned to him, I was like, "Do you just want to like just write a song that's not for Monasteries? Just write something that's fun and it's not in this category where we have to do it. It's just like just write fucking just write some music."
Yeah, let's write something.
Yeah. And then we wrote underneath within an hour, and and we look back on it and we're like, this is so sick. And then our bassist Jordan, Jordan Ryan Burke called me and was just like, "What you doing?" Also, Jordan did like a lot of the visuals, promos for like Monasteries. He did some of the teasers. He's my dog, and pretty much yeah, he called me. He's like, "What you doing?" And I was like, "Ah, well, me and I was just writing this music song. Just gonna come over and like hang out." He's like, "Yeah, sure." And then pretty much like while he was coming over, I said to Aaron, I was like, "Well, we could do some of this, and we could just kind of like have it as like an online project, and if it does well, get members in, see where it goes." And that was pretty much like the intention. And then he was like, "What do you want to call it?" And I was like, "Malice." And for some reason, like Malice, just kind of like the name resonated with me during that like that time period, sorry, of my life, because I was just like such an angry guy about certain things. And then pretty much he was like, he looked at me and I looked at him, he smiled, I was like, "Yeah, there we go." And then Jordan came and then pretty much like showed him, he was like, "Yeah, this is sick." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Do you have a basis?" And I was just like, not thought that far ahead, to be honest, just kind of like seeing where it goes. And then he's like, "Well, I can play bass." And I was like, "Well, out of like the 2 years of our friendship at that time, I was like, you've never told me you could play bass." So that was a new thing. It was pretty funny. And then Jordan joined, and Malice was a thing for like continued being a thing for like an extra like, month. And then there was talks of like second guitarists, and then Jordan was like, "Well, I know a guy, Matt Judge." Matt Judge came into the picture. We had a drummer that didn't make the cut. There's kind of like due to like differences, and yeah, and then found Jack Foster, and that's pretty much the entirety of the lore of Malice. But like before Jack came, we was just like writing, because that was just the goal was just to kind of like write and have pretty much fun with it. Obviously, in my head, I have a plan for where I want to go, and at the moment, it's going accordingly to plan. It's going very, very well in
Good.
the headquarters.
Yeah, honestly, it's like when you develop a project like that, you've had the opportunity to record at least an EP, couple singles that did pretty well, and then get an album out into the world. It's like I can only imagine that it was difficult thinking about restarting, but
Yeah,
what you did and what is really, really important to acknowledge is that in the moment when you guys were preparing to write new material after Ominous, which was a fantastic record, by the way, had a front to back session for that ready to go and everything. But after the podcast session, I'm like, well, maybe that doesn't need to be a thing. Like maybe that should be left to the wind or something. That was like kind of my mindset at the time. Um, that and it's I don't know, it just felt awkward at that time. But
yeah. No one like really saw it coming, but like I was on tour with Signs of Swarm in the summer, and we were touring Europe together, and I just Aaron left, and then I left like kind of like immediately after him. So yeah,
yeah,
that's how it pretty much ended. And then I think for me and Aaron, it was just kind of like the time was up, and just kind of felt like we were like on different paths, and
yeah,
just wanted to like have more and just kind of like do something different, because we've been in Monsters for so long, and the music was great, the album was fun, everything was fantastic, the fans were amazing, but we're just kind of like we weren't really like there with it anymore. So
yeah.
we just kind of
And
like parted ways.
right. And of course, like, if you're under NDA or anything of that similar nature regarding this question, that's completely fine. We can bypass it. But like at the time, right before Ominous decided or Jesus, before Monasteries decided to announce what would be Ominous, releasing, I think, summer of last year, correct? Spring or summer?
Yeah, maybe like
Yeah.
spring, because like we
Right.
released it like later on.
Yeah. So like obviously you guys ended up signing to Seek and Strike, or you signed Monasteries to Seek and Strike, and then you announced Ominous. Like, how did the process go with Seek and Strike after that? Like, did
So yeah, we've been with Seek and Strike for like years before. I mean, so
oh,
we did the EP Silence for we did the single Lilac for and we pretty much didn't speak to the label. We just quit, and we haven't. No one has heard from the label. It's just kind of gone ghost water, but yeah, no one has like spoken to him, and for me personally, I'd rather keep it that way.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Not like I fear him or anything. It's just that whole relationship with him was just bad juju. It just wasn't good. Yeah.
Fair enough. And that's all we need to say. That's all we need to say. Because honestly, I know a couple more artists, not personally, but I've networked with a couple more artists that happen to be signed to that label. I think Croesus. That's I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
If not, they're on a very similar trajectory to you guys with being with Blood Blast distribution and shit. But definitely seems to be a steady growing label, a steady growing distributor when it comes to metalcore, metal, deathcore bands. Mostly, I don't think anybody should expect to see a slam band on that label anytime soon, just because, well, it's kind of like Dreambound, if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah, absolutely. They
Yeah,
used to do like Casey.
yeah. So like basically I think of Seek and Strike as like the Dreambound level for like deathcore and heavier metalcore bands for sure. So um yeah, I was like, I really hope these guys don't get like fucking dragged through the mud after that whole situation. Like I was genuinely worried and concerned because I simply had the impression that you guys had just signed to them. I don't know how that got misunderstood on my end, but I'm like, shit, like they just signed to them. Like, how is that going to?
Well, the label wasn't really pushing anything to the band. Everything
Mm,
was still self-paid for.
oh,
So they don't really have anything to kind of like climb on top of us and be like, It's like, well, uh, we, we, we owed them like an extra release, but we just part ways, and
mm,
any money from that release, like Ominous, we haven't saw. So
fair. Oh, geez. Okay, fair enough. That must be why they haven't reached out because they're just, maybe they're enjoying the royalties of that still or something. I'm not sure because I'm
two
not.
word, two words for him. Fuck him.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Well, I think that will be a great point to kind of like attempt to segue into something else because by no means yet am I seasoned in anything officially on paper having to do with what is actually being on the inside when it comes to the music industry, right? Blind Without Our Failures, we barely have one single out. We plan to release at least 10 albums, get one of them on gold, maybe release 5 EPs, do a couple splits, do a very Brand of Sacrifice, Lifeblood-esque 3-album project themed off of a very specific show, but it spans across multiple shows and they are interconnected in very special ways. So we have ambition, right? We have intentions, but disclaimer, I don't know shit about the actual music industry, but that's also what we attempt to do with the Anatomy podcast, especially as we climb the ranks, talk to bigger personalities going into the near future, is just kind of helping new and upcoming artists kind of get a deeper insight into what they could be walking into with certain parties. But that's about it. Other than that, it's like I haven't exactly been through the ringer with Unique Leader Records, Century Media, Nuclear Blast, Thriller, Fearless, Rise, Sharp Tone, Grayscale. None of those. I haven't touched any of those yet, and probably won't be for some time. So basically, kind of going back to your story, because more or less, ironically, we ended up fulfilling a greater chunk of the second half of the podcast, and therefore it ends up being a chaotic conversation. But I don't mind that whatsoever. We were talking about more or less how you were bouncing and you have been bouncing along. You had been bouncing along multiple projects up until the point of Monasteries that broke up and now you're in Malice. So, of course, then we were also talking about the difference between actually being a musician in a band and wanting the label, right? Wanting to pretend like you're part of something bigger, but not really contributing anything. As most of my later grade school years attributed to that, they were a testament to that. So of course, then after that, after you'd been doing vocals for a very, very long time, you started investing into other endeavors, right? Even up until now, because it's been so long since we attempted to record what was that first podcast session. Really, all I know is that you every now and then get on the road with certain bands and you are at their merch tables. So if anything, I would love to kind of learn about how all of that started, kind of rekindle the fires in my caveman brain, and kind of learn how that all started and where it's kind of taken you up until this point.
It was maybe like 2021, I believe. I'm looking at my passes right now. I did merch for a band that was opening on Ingested's headliner. It was like the Body Snatcher Cranius tour. And yeah, it was that one. And then I did merch for the opening band. And then just kind of like, I think it was like second to last day, just kind of like said to Jason and be like, all right, if you ever need a merch guy, let me know. I'd love to do it. Because Jason was just kind of like doing everything himself. And they was very like inspiring, yeah, because they have like a good demand and they have a lot of like people coming to their table speaking to him, and obviously as a vocalist he needs to kind of savor that voice and rest it, and it's hard when you're speaking over PA speakers. But pretty much like I asked that to them, and they just kind of like kept their eye on me, and at the date of like Southampton, Lynn was just like, you ever toured before? And I was like, oh, well, this is like my second tour. And then prior to that was like, no, not prior. After that, I was doing 2 weeks with Monasteries with Indestruction, and then they knew that information, and then just kind of was like, okay, cool. Well, you're doing that ahead. Well, come with us on tour with Fit for an Autopsy after that, and then I got welcomed in, and I haven't really left that side. They are some of the best and most inspirational people I've ever met. Everything I've ever learned is from them, and everything I am now is because of them. So I ingested a great deal of my knowledge and who I am, because without them, I probably would be stuck in bad label contracts, bad direction of things, not really understanding anything. And then they just kind of gave me that leeway and that knowledge, and it has worked. It's benefited me. It's helped, and as I say, like that I owe them everything. Like
Yeah. No, I
they,
mean,
like without them, I'm sure Malice wouldn't be what it is right now either, because they were there for like me, the process of me leaving Monasteries, and they were kind of guiding me in a way like, you should do this, you should try that. And for anyone like starting a band, as well, that wants to do this, the first part of it is just like just have fun, go to shows, just do that, and then if there's like furthermore you want to do, it's just keep having fun, just keep writing and write for yourself and do it for the right reasons.
exactly. Yeah. Because I can easily attest to that, though I don't have any experience outside of one demo version of a single that we still need to get re-recorded with who will be our new frontman, with who might be our lead guitarist, rhythm guitarist. I'm also going to be the bassist, and then we're obviously trying to acquire the drummer still. That's a whole fucking process. But for the most part, after that, I mentioned before that I have at least like 10 albums planned out, 10 different concepts planned out. And that's just from me. Like, that's not including the fact that I also am trying to have Blind Without Our Failures be a little bit more engaging by having the other members also write their own EPs or own albums worth of concepts and material. Now, of course, I cannot confirm this. That's the only reason I say this, but I've never really heard of a band in recent times to where they put they push an album forward based on material, lyrical material, and concepts that other members in the band write completely. Just like, okay, this is something that I wrote. Hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully we can make something out of it. Boom. And just have every single member writing shit. And that way, over time, there's no such thing as a frontman with the band. There's no such thing as a frontman with Blind. But instead, it's like we're almost bouncing back and forth as far as the perspective. And hopefully, over time, not only will that create so much more material, but hopefully that will also make it to where we all are able to learn how to harness different parts of ourselves creatively for the band. Like that's ultimately my goal with it. But it's starting out a band is very, very difficult. It can be very difficult, especially if you're not someone like Caleb Shomo, to where you can just write everything yourself and then hire people to go on tour with you and play and be like, this is exactly what I fucking want because I wrote it. This is Beartooth, right? Like that took him a lot of time, I'm sure. Being able to learn how to play the drum beats, learning how to play the bass guitar, rhythm guitar, and then on top of that doing vocals, most likely handling the logo, being the primary face, being the primary person who deals with Red Bull Records behind the scenes. It's a very complicated process, but I give him all the credit because of that. It's like there aren't really that many bands in the scene that can say that their frontman literally wrote everything and just had people join him on tour and maybe making minor adjustments during the creative process. It's difficult to not only start a band, recruit people for a band, but also be the actual figurehead and a valid incarnation of a figurehead for a band. It's difficult. And I mean, obviously you have a lot more experience with stuff like that as you've already chambered through one and now you're on to the next, as if you have a full revolver and you're basically you haven't even gone through 2 out of 6 of the bullets, right? It's very it comes with a lot of patience. It comes with a lot of perseverance and passion. But I also, of course, wanted to branch off of what you said regarding going to shows. People, that's the homework. That is the homework. Whether you're going to local shows or maybe you're understanding the standard that you want your band at one day. By going to tours that feature bands like Beartooth, Architects, While She Sleeps, Trivium, whatever. That's how you kind of raise your standard, and that's how you continue to kindle that fire of ambition, wanting your band one day to be where they're at right now. Or maybe you're just like, I want to have fun. And then like most of the great, amazing artists that we've had on the show so far, one thing leads to another. You're just writing material to have fun, to tell stories, to make concepts visual, make things in your head, put it onto paper, and then compress it into music, right? Maybe it starts out as that, and then before you know it, you already have 10,000 monthly. It all starts with being sore and figuring out whether or not after 3 hours of standing, if you're going to be sore and you're like, I just want to go home, man. I don't even want to do this anymore. The moment you realize you're one of those people, like nothing wrong with that, of course. Everybody has their limits. You got to understand your limits. But the moment that you realize that you have that going through your head and that's at the forefront of your mind, it's probably best that you don't join a band. Like, or more specifically, because that can be pretty vague.
It's just like when you go to shows, you could find your guy right there, like the guy that's gonna help. Because like just conversation, spark a conversation, like speak to people, because
Yes,
like that's where it is. And it's like I never got to do that. I wish I did, but like I did meet a lot of my friends through there that ended up being in like my projects. But yeah, just communicate and like speak to new people, because your guy could like literally just be right there in front of you. But
that's true.
like, yeah, it's why but also like it's like for introverts as well, or like people like with bad anxiety that can't speak to people. That's why social media is such like a good thing as well because you can find people on your doorstep. It's like I don't think I if social media wasn't a thing, I don't think I wouldn't have come across like Jordan because I met Jordan through his photography page where I hired him to do like photography for monasteries. That's how like I met one of my close friends. So yeah,
That's true. That's very true. Social media, though it can create plenty of overcast level of just brain fog and just brain rot, especially if you're one of them doom scrollers. Like, stop doom scrolling. Stop doom scrolling on TikTok. We're having a productive conversation here, okay? We're trying to teach y'all something. We're trying to provide insight, or at least I'm trying to get Josh to provide insight because he knows a lot more about this shit than I do. Um, it's very important to understand how to network, yes, and take those shots, take those opportunities. Dude, as bands, as being in a band project is another form of relationship. When it comes to recruiting people for that band project, no matter how many you're wanting to get, maybe you want to get a keyboardist who's also a vocalist, rhythm guitarist, lead guitarist, bassist, drummer, and maybe even a secondary vocalist. That's already 6 people that you have to look for. Okay. So it's like basically plucking 6 people from your local area, going on a date with all of them, and seeing like how you kind of dance together, right? And seeing how well you work together, and then seeing what they can contribute to the relationship.
it's
What I'm
good like
trying
you
to say
meant
is,
it's good you mentioning like see what they
yeah,
contributing to because it's another thing would be kind of like be be open with ideas. Don't be too quick to shut it down because their ideas could, sorry, be better than your ideas, and you don't want to make anyone feel like shit. You just like,
unwanted.
yeah, because if you got that idea, like say you wrote this breakdown, you're like, yeah, this is sick, this is it, and they're like, well, this, and you're like, nah, it's not really the best intention. Like you should be going back and forth because going back and forth, no matter how annoying it might be, you're gonna bring the best product. It's like Matt does a lot of Malice's production, and he'll send something forward, and then we'll give our opinions, whether like we prefer the old way or the new way, or you should try this or try that, or just give him a reference. And that's it, because with Malice, like what I wanted, the intention of starting this band was just to kind of make it about the music, make it about the art we create, make it about that. I don't really want it to be about us. I don't want a guy like one pinnacle point of being the band, which it kind of seems like these days. I just kind of want it to be about the art we create. That's why like in the music video underneath, it's more narrative based
Mm.
than performance. And Murray and Harry just completely killed it with that video, and it's everything we all wanted. And yeah, super proud of that.
No, seriously. I A part of me, because I've been doing this a lot recently with the show. What I'll do is like right before we get kickstarted into like kind of learning about the people part of the podcast, the first half, we've actually been listening to albums and EPs. Do you mind if we actually go ahead and check out this music video real quick?
Yeah, go for it. It's
Sweet. Because dude, I'm excited. I'm excited to check out this song, and then on top of that, as kind of unintentionally clickbait as it is, it's like, oh my gosh, we listened to the new Malice song with the Malice vocalist. Holy shit! Like, definitely not the intention. But it's also, I'm sure, really fun for you to be in the moment. With really
you
anybody
know what?
who's
Absolutely, I want to
yeah.
see like your reaction, like because that would be like everything. Because like I've not heard any bad thing about the song as far as I'm aware. I've saw one thing just on Reddit because the band has a Reddit account,
Oh,
but that was it. Just one thing. But
got
like it's just a matter of opinion with production and mix. But like I feel like that's such a a big scale to speak about because everyone has their own like sweet tooth for things. But yeah, like I definitely want to see your reaction to this because it's such a good video. And before we start this, of course, like shout out to Moody's and Harry at Haunted Mattress. Killed the video. Shout out to like one of my best friends, Kat, who did like the prosthetic, did the did all the help me with like designing the entity, and shout out to Jimmy. Also shout out to Kat again, like because she also helped me like put my makeup on as well. So that's sick. So yeah, enjoy. I can't hear you. You kind of gone quiet.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. I seriously wonder now if I was just mute that entire time during the listening process. But no, that was really fun. That was solid as shit. That sounded really good. I like that the Malice moment kind of like, to me it's like, oh, okay, so it's like the UK version of Spite, you know, obviously joking because you get your own entity, but very, very similar vibe. I love that shit. That was so much fun to listen to. And of course now, like, it's funny because before it'd be like, okay, now I have even more questions, but like more, it's like more or less in this moment, I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah. I look forward to what Malice unleashes upon the UK scene because I know it's going to be a lot. Now, speaking upon a graphic artist perspective, you guys already have like a logo, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if on the YouTube you see like our kind of stamp, which is like the hand,
Yes, the
and
emblem.
like yes, like so sick.
No, I love it. It definitely looks solid, and from afar, it kind of looks like a heart to me, which I'm not sure if that was intentional. Like, it obviously it's a hand when you actually see the image, but I think that could be, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think that could be easily mistaken for a heart, and maybe it's like vice grip on the heart. But anyways, okay. Well, let's see. Let's see. How was that stamp, as you call it? Because I like that term. That's a pretty sick thing. How did you guys decide upon that design?
Let me get my homie's Instagram. I can't remember the top of my head.
No
So
problem.
his name is Chris, but his Instagram's at dematula_3D. Have you seen the new Enterprise Earth album artwork?
Oh, yes,
He's yeah, like he did all that and he's like the man. So like I've been looking at his work for a very, 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 very long time and I've always wanted to work with him. And then just kind of like when we got the logo, we had like an older logo that didn't fit us because everything had to kind of like make sense and be
yeah,
cohesive. And like I'm just looking for like deathcore logos, but like with this one, I kind of want it to be like scratchy and bit more readable, and which we did get. But that hand Chris did, it was just kind of like I like the term and the fact you can have a branded how as an example, I'm trying to think like Ingested have the sigil, Spite have the skull,
yes,
Body Snatcher have that triangle.
yes.
So like just just things that kind of like fit the
Stick out.
band and yeah. So like I didn't want a sigil because it was like too like death metal. I didn't want like just random like shapes being formed into something. But I kind of wanted imagery that defined the band and kind of resonated. And when I saw that, I was like that because like there's more parts to it, but
Yes,
I was like, I just want that hand
yeah,
because I don't really see anyone with it, and for plans I have in the future, that hand I'm gonna bring to life and bring it to like stage purposes and
yeah. And
thing.
honestly, from
It's just
sorry,
now you're all good. It's just like something that like resonated. I don't know what it is. I feel like it was just like the matter of like instinct. I saw it and I was like,
that's
that
it.
that's Malice.
Yeah, that's like the kind of the uh the evil hand of Malice or something. Um
Yeah,
and the palm of Malice. That sounds a little bit more original.
yeah.
Um
People will be seeing that like in videos, future videos, and kind of like across merch and
yeah.
everywhere. Because like as much as like I love our logo, but I want that to kind of be like a force to be reckoned with. Like if you
Yes.
see that hand with the nails in, people be like Malice.
Yeah, Malice, exactly. And I really the only thing I can see that I guess I'm kind of curious then about the other visuals that kind of came with that hand that you decided to want like decided to part with because obviously it's important to acknowledge how your instincts led you to just wanting this hand with the two nails in it. So like what other things were involved with the image when you first saw this hand? And like
So
how did they kind of not work with what Malice is doing?
it's like it's not the fact they worked, it's just more of the fact of like you need to think of like what catches to the eye. If you have something that's like so heavily detailed and so involved, it
Yes.
kind of loses its pinnacle point of like it being like a stamp. Like we're still using the excess, I'll call it, that was around it. So like above it was just like thorns, bottom left and
Mm,
right of it was just like nails and an upside down cross. But kind of like, but pretty much like I just wanted the hang because that just felt like a stamp. That felt like what this band is and what we're doing and what we're going to hopefully like achieve. But
yes.
yeah, like it just felt like refreshing and new. Like I just saw it and was like,
Yeah, it is.
that's it. And like as like a merch guy and someone who's like heavily involved in like the Malice like merch, I could just felt like that can be seen everywhere. Like from
Yeah.
stickers to kind of like pocket prints of it to kind of like flags of it. It just felt like, as I said again, instead of like having the Malice logo, people will look at that and be like, Malice. It's to me like it's a good choice of branding, and I
Yes.
feel like it's just spot on. Like I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. No, seriously. And here's the thing too, from a marketing strategy, from a marketing standpoint, as someone who's done merch, um, you've been at the merch tables for plenty of bands. You've probably chambered through plenty, like maybe can I confirm that you were at the forefront of like when it came to deciding merch designs for monasteries and stuff like that? Or
Yeah, that was pretty much like all me and like co-producing it with like other like artists and just kind of being like, I would like this. They'd execute it back and forth,
yeah,
and that's how much it pre-made. It's kind of like it's the same process with Malice as
yeah,
well, but this time, um, if they have like any opinions, I'll always take it in and then
yeah,
speak upon it and be like, this, that, we could do this and that. And like, we have designs. I really should be saying that, but yeah, we have designs that are like that have, that are just like have people's like little bit of stamp on it. So yeah.
no, it's sick. I love that. So like, yeah, well, more or less what I was trying to get at is because you've had the experience you've had, because you were at the forefront with monasteries and their merch design, bouncing back and forth with artists, making sure that all the designs were really, really good, that there'd be more likely of a chance that people would be willing to invest into them. I think honestly, Malice starting out with just like a hand with two nails in it, I think that's a really, really fucking good start. Because I'll tell you what, just like the bands that you just mentioned, that being Ingested, I like their sigil, how it's not exactly a pentagram, but it is, but it's not. It's their own thing. It's completely original. And more specifically, I remember too at one point that if you searched up that image on public domain, there was actually a Wikipedia article that led you to quote the UK Coven of Witches or something like that, which I'm like, wait, what? um,
They are very smart people.
yeah,
They know what to do it, and like, as again, all my knowledge is pretty much just learned from them. And it's like, even when it comes to merch, you have to put aside what you like because you can't. You have to cater for the many and not the few. I feel
right.
when it comes to merch, because not everyone will want to wear what you want to wear or dress how you want to dress. So kind of like having a variety of things is such a good thing.
Yeah,
Like if you have this gory t-shirt, 5% of your audience will wear it. If you have a dad cap with just the hand and the malice on the back, 20% of your audience will get it. If no one likes either of those things and you have the small accessory, then great. And they'll have that, like key rings or anything.
yeah,
But it's just like, yeah, cater for the many and not the few is kind of like my goal in merch because I would like for anyone that comes and sees us to invest and just kind of pick something up because there will be times where we do like heavy graphic t-shirts and then there is going to be times at the same time where there's going to be a
like
more
hella minimalistic.
streetwear.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it like I know I don't really know Malice's crowd at the moment, but like it's going to be testful waters when the band does finally do merch. But yeah, that'll be very like an interesting thing to tackle because I feel like if people already enjoy the imagery we're pushing out now, they're going to enjoy the merch that's kind of sitting
yeah,
on the iCloud folders. But pretty much, yeah, like cater for the many and not the few because
yeah,
you don't really because yeah, not everyone's gonna like enjoy what you want to wear. Minimal
yeah,
stuff would be great, like accessories as well. And I feel like because merch is so expensive nowadays with the cost of living and the cost of things. So
yes.
like I feel like logo t-shirts do well, but not as well as they could. And I feel like people want more than just a logo, especially with the money they're paying.
Oh yeah,
And I feel like When you get merch from a band, what do you feel lacks when you got a delivery from a band? So, as an example, Malice just got sent you a t-shirt. You open it, it's just a Malice t-shirt. Are you happy? Do you feel there could be more? Do you feel there could be more of an investment back, or kind of like more of a gratitude back, or kind of more of like a thank you back? What do you feel like bands could improve on? Because that's a question for you, because I know my answer.
So for me, I definitely miss back in the day when I would buy at least a t-shirt and a CD. And then when you opened up the CD, surprise, there are like 3 stickers in the CD case. I miss that shit, bro.
Exactly, exactly. And we have a system that I've put in place, and it's called kind of like just it's not a cliche. It's just called like the giving back system, because merch is so expensive, and it is how you make your money these days. And anyone that receives anything from us, I want them to kind of feel a part of this world we're creating, a part of man as being like a fourth, fifth, sixth member. Because I want to get to a point where people can start opening. This is like an idea, but like it's gonna happen because I'm so determined for it. But like I want to get to a point where like people will open parcels and be like, there's like a tote bag. There's like something. I want Malice parcels to be like Pokemon cards, so you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yes.
Like I want people to kind of post their parcel and be like, cool, my Malice t-shirt came with this awesome logo sticker, and then someone else being like, oh, my Malice parcel came but with this holographic hand sticker.
Yeah, that's sick. I
I
like that.
because it's kind of like it kind of like I know there's like sticker frantic people out there that love stickers. So if
Yes.
like so they kind of like you kind of make people feel more welcomed and make them want to come back and make them be like, oh well, if that guy got that sticker, then maybe I can get back and get this sticker. There
Yeah.
is people like that, and it will work. But like, yeah, I want there to be like a giving back system. I want there to be a part where I can start giving out like, sorry, badges, key rings, just
Yeah, that'd
small
be
things to
sick.
make people welcome. Like I have this
Right.
whole idea of using like this photo we've got just like lay it just sitting in the vault, and I want to press like A4, A5 like posters, and on the back I want to do like a narrative like a narrative poem, and then just number them maybe to 25, maybe to 50, a double-sided poster, and then people will just kind of get it, and then it'll give them something more to look at. But yeah,
Right.
the giving back project is something I want to do entirely, and it's something that's going to be at shows as well. Like, I don't think I'm going to put stickers on the table, but I want to do like if someone buys something, and when you hand them something, they get a sticker.
Right. So I wanted to like be quick and kind of seamless with this. But as a customer, as someone who loves to invest, of course there was the sticker thing I mentioned, but
You've gone quiet again, sorry.
now you're good. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So I remember back in the day when I got my first ever CD, and that was actually Wage War's Dead Weight, one of my favorite albums still. I streamed that thing mercilessly, and through that album I also learned how to do clean vocals and heavy vocals, but also bounce back and forth with both of those spectrums at the same time, allowing for me to be a better frontman, yada yada yada. But
Yep.
um one thing I enjoyed over time, even though I don't really listen to them anymore. So this right here, this is the physical for of my Men's Earth and Sky album. So like, okay, why is it a little bit more thicker? Like what's going on? So the outer layer kind of just captures everything. Um, come on. And then you take the CD out. Oh shit. You take the CD out and it starts like this. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is really cool. And then you open it and it's just all this various shit opens up, right? But not only that, there is also, if I can get it out the right way, There's also these like you can't really see it right now. Maybe it's better to put it upon a surface or something. I don't even know what these are, but it's like classified, like federal documents, but it's like plastic. It's see-through plastic. You put all of them together, and then it, I think, forms lyrics. Hold on.
That's cool as fuck.
And of course, again, this is a Mice and Men, so yeah, more or less, they probably had the money to do this. And this was also when they were still with Rise Records. I think this was their last album with Rise Records. I'm trying to put this in the right order because I know if I do put it in the right order, that it becomes a lyric sheet, I think, or something. Oh Jesus, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I don't know what that's supposed to say, but just this simple shit like that. The extra details that some of these bands put into their shit was just fantastic. Okay, so here's another thing for sure. You can't really see it right now, but it folds out in 4 different ways. It says Earth, and then it says sky at the bottom, and it just kind of gives a more like conspiracy theory look to it. Makes it look all like freaking federal Area 51 time lapse 5, and then of course you have the lyric book, which is a little bit more simple. Now again, this is on Rise Records. This is on Rise Records allowance for sure. So it was just like interesting getting this in the mail because I only really liked one of the songs on this album. Like the rest of the songs weren't exactly my forte, and that's after this album is really more or less where I got out of Mice and Men. Like they just didn't pique my interest anymore. I'm like, it hasn't been the same since Austin Carlisle, but also that dude is weirdly and like almost cult level religious. So I'm good. It's shit like that I miss. Another example would be when you have the lyric book, but it also unfolds into a separate A2 poster. Enterprise Earth's Luciferus did that. It ended up being like an A2, I think, at least a 2x2 poster. And it was signed as well in like one of the corners. So you had like a little signed A2 poster, but it was also a lyric book. Architects did that with Holy Hell. It's a separate version of the album cover. I think it's like a secondary version of the album cover, and that's also an A2 poster. I have those. So it's like shit like that. That's what really brings me back. That's what has me investing. And of course, it's at a small cost to the band. It's at a small cost to the artist, but overall, it just makes the investment so much more worth it because you don't really hear about that sort of stuff. And then, I mean, hell, a good example that being Wage War's Deadweight with the stickers, and then I would say, what was the other one? I think Cane Hill's Too Far Gone. That was another CD I got to where there were stickers and shit in it. After that, I noticed that no one was doing that anymore. They're like, well, if you want stickers, you can buy them separately on the website, or you can catch them on the tour. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like, it was so sad. And so here's something a little bit more on brand for you for the giving system, the giving hand of Malice, the giving palm of Malice. There you go. I like the sound of that. That's pretty cool. And it's funny because most people will see that hand and they'll probably think of the two-handed like prayer hand thing. But they're like, oh, it's like the praying hand pair of deathcore or something, of UK deathcore. But I can definitely see that becoming a very prevalent thing for you guys. Just like this is the palm of Malice, and this is our giving back system. With any physical CDs that you decide to get, well, there's gonna be stickers in them. It's like, yay! Especially let's see. So stickers, holographic stickers for sure. But maybe even like bumper stickers would be sick.
Yeah, just like lanyards, just like little things, because I always thought about the term little things matter the most. Like no matter how big the thing is you get, but the smallest things are the most memorable. And the most memorable things the people things will always remember and always bring up and always speak about. So it's good to have that impression. But yeah, the giving back system is like it's definitely gonna be going ahead as best as it can be at this moment in time.
Yeah, for real. Well, I mean, we're talking a lot about marketing. We've been talking a lot about like kind of what happens behind the scenes, especially if you are the figurehead, if you are the spearhead of the project that you are trying to push forward. Um, we've been talking a lot about your history. We've been talking about the band projects you've been in along your journey. Now, most recently with Malice, as you kickstart that chapter of your musical career. Um, if anything, I would love to learn about just some of the lessons and some of the, of course, not under NDA details and shit that, you know, maybe other bands have kind of like given you along the way that have really, really helped you carve out your knowledge and your insight behind the scenes of how things work. And maybe lessons that they taught
Yeah.
you that have really stuck with you.
Primary one, do things for yourself and do things for the right reason and always write for yourself and no one else. Obviously take no shit, and obviously never like fear to ask questions because if you get like a contract, it's good just to keep shopping around and like asking people because you don't because there is bad people out there that want to sign bands for the bad reason, and Monasteries has been there, and it's a lesson learned that we've made, and it's something that I'll never want us to well for me to ever fall back into, and
Right.
I feel certain that I won't. A lesson. Care for the many and not the few with when it comes to merch, like or have a variety of things on the table, like because not everyone's gonna want a t-shirt or a dad cap or a hoodie. So even like a mountain like accessories will always help. Um, have fun. Also, don't blow a lot of money. Don't throw money at the wall hoping for it to kind of like stick with shit because
Mm,
you need to like think ways out and kind of like and by all means like we're not doing Malice just to fucking be the biggest band in the world. Pretty much like Malice is just art and creative music and like bringing that back and having that as the primary focus, not individually us. So like yeah. Trying to think of any other lessons. I know touring lessons, but that's it. Like
right.
like just kind of like keep your shit in a small room. Like don't
Mm,
really mess with other people's shit.
yeah,
Keep
that's
yourself
fair.
to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, kind of
Play
like
fair.
yeah, play fair, stick to yourself, stick to your circles. Of course, branch out eventually
Yeah.
if opportunities
Be
arise.
open minded with your bands because their ideas could benefit your ideas.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
that's a thing. Like always welcoming ideas, even if like don't get like used, but welcome in with open arms and be like, maybe not this one, but the next one. But like always keep it in mind.
Absolutely. And I think those are some pretty valuable lessons for anybody trying to get into a band to learn because it's all about the creation. Of course,
Yes.
if you are from the fucking hair metal douche rock era and you're a band making millions off of music, still, even today, even if you're rotting from all the alcohol that you drank back in the 80s, you're still relapsing or some shit like Axl Rose from fucking Guns N' Roses, whatever the case might be. It's different for people like that who really just embellished in the royalties and the riches of sucks Jesus not sucks sex drugs and money sucks um it was a different era back then. Now, as opposed to it just being about being a rock star, we are continuing forward, and at the very least the only obligation that all of us have is to continuing to exist in a world that's becoming so much more complicated and cruel every day, no matter where you are. So, what I love is that by me attempting to invest myself, my time, get insight from other perspectives about counterculture. Well, these days it isn't exactly about being rock and roll like yeah sex drugs and money like it's not about that anymore, and if it is, well, that would mean that I'm in the wrong crowd. I'm very grateful to be surrounded by people and to be meeting new people almost every day from different parts of the planet. all around the planet that all have the same intention. They are wanting to write music for fun. They are wanting to write music to emotionally vent without having to pay for therapy. Um, they are people that are trying to make connections, help other people who feel very similar to them. It's just a lot more authentic these days. It's a lot more soulful, right? And that's the beauty of it. But ironically, the more softer music that everybody would rather listen to, well, nowadays, unfortunately, some of those bigger artists at the very top, no soul at all. They're just in it for the money. They're just in it to scoop you out of $800 for a ticket, a seat that's like at least a football field away from them. It just fucking
Yeah.
sucks to understand that, you know, at the very top of it is where you start to lose your soul, is where you start to lose your personality. And most likely because most of these people are under contract from actual billionaires, but also it's always painful to me to understand that music can connect so many people in so many different ways, but sometimes the people behind the music, they don't give a shit about you. They just want money, right? It's
Yeah,
difficult.
it does come across like that sometimes, and that's where that bad people like lay. It's like anyone who's like started a band, I would just pretty much say have fun. Don't just have your objective as have fun and create the art and create the music. That's all I
Seriously.
would say.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing is if you have the passion for it, and this, like, using that word passion, more passion, more passion, more power. Like, um, at the end of the day, for me, I've seen so many people, whether at the top or even at the bottom, who just they're not having fun.
Yeah.
And it's the worst. Like it's the worst to see people not having fun with what they're doing in life or what they want to do, what they want to do with life. It's the worst. Because then, you know, what's the reason that you're trying to make money off of it? Is it just to make money off of something that you're kind of good at? Like, are
Yeah.
you really trying to get $90 a month off of your 90 fans for learning how to fucking, I don't even know, just get a riff down really fast? Like, what the fuck is the point in that? Oops. Shit. Uh-oh. Okay, we're still on. Okay. Thought I unplugged some shit for a second. But it's so different. It's different. It's and that's like, I don't know, coming from a very, I wouldn't say enlightened perspective, but someone who at least understands the golden ratio. Are you familiar with the golden ratio at all?
Talk to me about it, and maybe.
Okay. So the golden ratio states as follows. Everything in creation, everything in the universe at one point all consisted of sound waves, even beyond the scale of atoms. Like everything is constantly in vibration, and even everything solid, it's just vibrations, but it's compressed sound waves. So therefore, at one point, everything was sound. That's kind of the theory.
Yeah.
That shit to me is the reason that music connects everybody. It's the reason that so many people are able to connect through music. And I think it's the reason that music is one of the only things that everybody can connect on, no matter what language you speak, no matter what genre you like. It's like, well, what do you like to listen to? What do you
Plus,
like to hear?
there's also a message behind every song, and people can resonate with that, and which further dives people more into it.
Yeah,
So that's also another one as well.
that's fair. Yeah. It's it's just so fascinating, and like it's really the reason, it's another reason I do this show is because there are so many different subgenres in counterculture music now. There are so many different cores, but at the end of the day, a lot of them listen to Card Effects, Suicide Silence, Asking Alexandria at one point, and then they're like, I want to do my own thing. I want to do my own original thing. And I'm like, well, there are millions of bands, so let's stop pretending that you're not basing maybe this song off of a combination of 5 songs that you've already heard by other bands, right? Because some people like to do that. at this point in the show, it's almost cringeworthy to hear sometimes. Just like we're trying to develop our own sound, but then you listen to their sound and they sound like, well, 16 other bands that you listen to already. It's like, well, I like that you're trying, but also be willing to attribute what you're making to those that you listened before. Like, obviously, if you listen to Born of Osiris, Slipknot, and Whitechapel, right? Those are three very distinct bands. What you're not trying to do, unless you are, of course, and you're just not telling us that, most likely you're not trying to do covers of the songs on every album and EP by all three of those bands. Those are just three bands, and that's already a lot of music. Chances are you're not specifically writing music based off of those bands. But
yeah,
what you can't deny and what you can't ignore is that because of listening to those bands, you're in the exact same spot that you are. You're in the spot that you are right now, trying to make music in the first place, trying to make something original. For me, what's the kind of disconnect with a lot of bands, with a lot of projects, is when they absolutely adamantly refuse to kind of say, like, I was a fan of this. So more or less, this song consisted of kind of the same riff from this other band, a breakdown, and then for whatever reason, a spoken word chorus, like whatever the fuck it might be. It's almost irritating to see so many bands trying to create their own thing, but absolutely refuse to acknowledge any of the bands that they listen to. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know. That's always bugged me since the beginning. People are like, we are like this and this and this core. I'm like, well, you told us earlier in session you like this band and this band and this band. It's okay to say that this material was inspired by this. I mean, hell, one of the albums I'm trying to write for Blind, it's actually a direct continuation of a statement, or it makes an album name from Architects, that being all our gods have abandoned us, right? What I'm planning to do is kind of finish that sentence. It's like, all of our gods have abandoned us. No, but we slaughtered them all, or something like that. And just like, ooh, that's interesting. Conspiracy theories. Let's go. That's mostly the intention of it, is to just kind of directly tribute off of that band, continue where they left off, but obviously as a separate entity. That shit is really interesting to me. And I know that if that album ever gets released, people will be like, wait a minute. Oh my gosh. Architects, all our gods have abandoned us? No, we just slaughtered them all instead. I get it now. And, you know, it, depending on how obvious we make the inspiration to Architects, that could be really fun for people who enjoyed that album way back in the day, but haven't received an Architects album like that since then, or something. It's stuff like that that I think I want to see a lot more of in the scene, is just that level of indirect collaboration, or indirect inspiration, or direct inspiration in that case, is just being okay with saying,
Your voice has gone off.
literally my mic is done by now.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know where I last left off, but so I would say Malice, because you were kind of asking this earlier, like, what do you think we would fit in? Like, where do you think we would fit in? And more or less, that wasn't the question that I was asked, but that's immediately a question that popped in my head. And I said to myself, okay, so Malice to me so far could be for fans of Cell, Boundaries, Orthodox, Spite, Body Snatcher, Traitors, and Paleface immediately. No Face, No Case could also be mentioned. Bound in Fear could also work. Being that you guys are based in the UK, I can see fans of Viscera being a big fan of you guys. And especially with Underneath, that first music video really like that really honed in on a more metallic hardcore perspective, while it's also having the John Erratic label of deathcore. So I definitely think that I definitely want to see you guys come over here to the States. And hopefully you'll be on a tour very similar to the Common Enemies tour that Spite and Body Snatcher are about to do. Holy shit. Spite, Body Snatcher, Cell, Gnosis, Psycho Frame. That's
Yeah,
gonna
they've got a UK one which is like Boundaries and Mouth for War Support. Sick.
exactly. So I mean, I can definitely see Malice and this dude, especially with that just like this moment. I'm like, yo, it's a spite of the UK, bro. It's a spite of the UK. They need to milk that shit into oblivion and maybe even like in the future allude to the palm of Malice and how, well, it looks like it's meant to be evil and it's the main thing you see. It's the main visualizer you see when anything is relevant to Malice popping up on your screen. But it's like overall good people behind it who are actually trying to return to certain standards as far as what they're distributing to their fans and what they're giving back to their fans. And therefore, the palm of Malice. Ironically, the palm of Malice instead of the palm of gifting, giving, that type of shit, as if it's Christmas. But no, it's crazy. It's cool. It's cool and crazy to see how much more productive this conversation has felt so far compared to the last one. I don't know about you, but there's a lot more energy to it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do need the toilet though.
we have been talking for quite a bit.
Yeah.
Good shit though, for sure. So of course I did this last time, and this is pretty formula for the podcast, but it is, it's the 2nd of March, 2024. It's been a little bit of time since we last had you jump into session. So of course, what I want to do before we more or less kind of dive into any substance, any lyrical content, any lyrical depth behind Underneath as a starting standalone single before we let you go. One thing I would love to do is kind of dig into 5 characters from you, either an album, a genre, bands, or even people. And like, what's most relevant to you right now? What have you been streaming mercilessly recently? That type of shit. And if there are too many bands, if you could just name me your like top 5 albums of 2023.
Right. I'm calling it of 2023. I'm gonna say Invent Animate Heavener.
Good album.
I would say the Static Dress Rouge Carpet Disaster album was insane. I'm trying to think what other great albums came out last year. Shit. Trying to think off the top of my head. I'm looking for my Spotify like, right now.
I can see you frantically just like combing through there, like shit.
Yeah, because like I've got so much music. I'm also, you know what? It's albums like coming out. Sentinels. Sentinels brought out a great EP.
Right. I haven't listened
Fantastic.
to that yet.
I'm also gonna call it now. The Boundaries album will be album of the year. Oh, and End's latest album from last year. That's another one. So that's 5.
Okay, hell yeah. So I mean, yeah, more or less Death is a little more technically a 2024 release, but still, I get where you're going with that. And I have a feeling with that album cover, man. Oh, the album cover, the material they've released so far from it, like for whatever reason, it's in between like Era and their new album Cure that's coming out later this year. I love the album cover for that. And Boundaries, their album cover for Death is Little More. That looks really sick. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to decide between those two because I love the black and white theme, the almost monochromatic theme. But like, I have a feeling I might have to decide between those two, and I'm not ready for that. That's pretty cool. Thank you for, pardon me, providing us 5 characters of some, musical material, some albums from 2023, and an album coming out later this year. Hopefully, shout out to Boundaries. Hopefully, we can get them on the Anatomy podcast, maybe for even an album
Fingers
listening party.
crossed.
Yeah, seriously, dude. Because I've been wanting to get them on. I even wanted to get them on during the Burying Brightness cycle.
Yeah.
Because that was their 2022 record. That album was incredible, but I simply did not. I don't think I had the platform or the formula, the structure on the show that was necessary to host a band like Boundaries in their entirety, including features. I didn't really have the structure I needed back then to host them like I plan to host them now. Like album listening party. Hopefully, bro, if we can get the vocalist of Alpha Wolf also to jump into session, like for the album listening party,
Sick.
listen to that album and then jump right into a podcast, dude, that would be groundbreaking for this show.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, like that's really what we're trying to do this year. Me and Finn is, of course, we're trying to at least get 100 more episodes released, so at least 100 more artists, 100 more personalities, etc. But also get as many bands scheduled, listen to their albums early on, do album listening parties for their material, have a week to kind of edit out those sessions, and then basically get into the, like, upload them, have them ready to go for premiere weekend for when the album goes on public domain. And then, I mean, really, my goal is to make the show a little bit more like a talk show. So me and my co-host do like an intro section for half an hour before and after, me introducing the band or him introducing the band to me. And then the outro is like, how did you think that session went? Like, was this band someone that we want to have back? Like, kind of ask those questions. Like, do we want to have them to come back? Did they really fulfill the formula? What's their potential looking like? As if we're fucking relevant. But we wrapped up then more or less the people part of the podcast for this session, which is most likely going to be episode 72 of the Anatomy podcast. For the last section of time, really the last chunk of time, one thing I would want to do is, for what it's worth, deep dive into Underneath, kind of talk about the creative process behind this song, talk about the lyrical depths, if there are like an insane amount, like a pool's worth of depths, and you're just ready to freaking dive head first and not bonk your head on the bottom of the pool. If there's that much substance to this single, that being Malice's first outing, like, how are things looking? What can we look forward to after Underneath? What happened with Underneath? Tell us everything. Tell us everything, please.
There is definitely a lot more music to come. People will be hearing more of us a lot. The lyrical content is more so being kind of like forced to believe that you're this person and you kind of deserve the worst. So kind of like being like manipulated. That's what the lyrics go. Is it all in my head? Chained to the desert tree. You told me you would be here and be with me throughout my grave. And it's like false promising, manipulating people who just kind of like turn their back on you. It's an angry song. Hold on one sec.
No problem.
We've got a cameo.
Yeah, let's go. Hello, doggy.
So yeah, pretty much. That's what the lyrics are about. And like the creative process, it's like everyone has their stamp on a song. Everyone has their own collective input, and it all works as a team, and it all falls under Malice, and it's just great.
Good shit. Well,
this is Blue.
Hello, Blue. I love your eyes. Is that why you named him Blue? Am I seeing blue eyes or am I seeing white eyes?
She has one blue eye and the other eye's green.
I love it. What a cute dog. How old is she now?
8 months.
8 months. Wow. Yeah, you're right, because you said you had her for 8 months before. Hello, puppy. She's like, who's that strange man who looks like he's homeless on the screen?
What's happening?
We love dogs. We absolutely love dogs on the show. Any guests, like, in the future, if y'all have pets, if y'all have snakes or whatever, cats, dogs, we want them on the show because we definitely want this to be a cozy podcast. We want this to be a pretty cozy show. And bro, I'm planning on getting a snake or a spider sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
So I'll have him on the show as well, him or her, and it will be a great time. I have this. You can kind of see it. I'm trying to point correctly. Damn it. Got a big old freaking tank right here that can actually host any freaking spider or snake in the world ever. So I'm looking forward to having that animal in there whenever I get the animal in the first place. But we love animals. I'm very much an animal guy. So just keep that in mind, future podcast guests or something. But I mean, honestly, I think for today, really, and until Malice is ready to release more material, and until the other boys in Malice, have the time to jump on, until we have the time to schedule them or the opportunity to schedule them, be in that conversation, really, I think that will be about it for today, for episode 72. Unless if there's anything else you wanted to talk about or mention, really.
Just people keep an eye on our socials. They'll be seeing a lot more of us.
And if I remember correctly, your Instagram currently is just at your Malice, right?
Yeah, at your Malice, Facebook, Malice UK.
Fuck yeah. And I definitely, if there is one thing I would suggest, is that you choose either your Malice or Malice UK, because you're going to confuse people.
We'll go with at your Malice. We'll bump the Instagram one up.
Okay, cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, over on Sean Cross, to the 900 and I think 13 of you who are subscribed over there, if not more. Thank you to everybody who is subscribed, as we're crawling very, very slowly but surely to our first 1,000 subs. I appreciate everybody who has subscribed to Sean Cross recently. And maybe if you are tuning in at the point of this coming out directly from the podcast's YouTube channel at this point, well, we at least have a subscriber for every episode, so that's nice. Like, I wish it was a lot more, as on our Facebook page we have like 329 followers. Hopefully we can get the Anatomy Podcast to 329 subs on the YouTube channel by the end of the year, because really that's where you get all your visual stuff, guys. That's where you get all the video versions of the podcast, and you get to see everybody laughing like a bunch of fucking morons. You get to see the freaking pet cameos and stuff. I mean, over time, I would love for the podcast to be about, like, every now and then me just having a drink as well, like a good old beer, just all of us sharing cold ones with the boys around the world, the boys and the girls. And again, everything possibly in between. But thank you all for listening to this considerably brief podcast compared to recent episodes, but I mean, for good reason, as things are really, really early on. And well, I wanted to catch Josh before he was too cool for me to come on the show. But
always got time for you, homie.
Hell yeah. Well, from me over in Phoenix, Arizona, and Josh across the pond over in the UK, we bid you all adieu. We bid you all farewell, only for now. Keep an eye out for Malice, the freaking future in UK incarnate of Spite, really. Just from a marketing standpoint, they're not doing Spite covers. Disclaimer. That would be pretty sick, though. Not gonna lie. Spite covers?
Maybe.
Yo,
Maybe.
everybody spam the comment section of the underneath music video. Suggest them some covers. Let's make this shit happen, because this is definitely your metallic hardcore / classic deathcore band over the pond over in the UK. Like, let's make it happen, people. But this has been the Anatomy Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night.